Let's go straight to the UK now, where their energy problems are getting worse and worse. Joining me now to get her insights is writer and commentator Esther Krakue. Esther, it's great to see you, and let me just say, on behalf of all Australians, you're looking particularly glamorous this evening. So there you go.
Thank you very much.
No worries. Let's start with this row over onshore wind turbines. Rishi Sunak has banned them, but he's facing a backbench revolt. He's only been in the job 5 minutes. What's happening, Esther?
Yeah, so there is this sort of tussle going on in the Conservative Party because backbench MPs are arguing that actually 10 years ago, where there was this huge NIMBY movement to not have wind turbines in certain areas, actually opinion has shifted on that, and more people want these really hideous wind farms in their backyard. I think if they did a national survey, they'll be quite shocked because it's mostly Conservatives that actually tend to be the strongest NIMBY lobby group. But the argument here is that we should expand our sustainable energy capacity. But it's very weird because the reality is part of the reason why we're in this crisis is because we subsidize very heavily our renewable energy resources. And you're not going to convince people that this type of energy, which is inefficient, even storing this energy is very difficult as well, is the best way to get us out of this crisis. I mean, we've had conversations around nuclear energy, tidal, all sorts of energy sources. But the fact that they're really pushing this just shows that they're actually very scared that there will be blowback if they don't push more sustainable sources of energy, which just, again, shows the disconnect between the Conservative parliamentarians and the Conservative Party that are looking for more secure, cheaper forms of energy that don't just sort of toe a particular line.
Well, Esther, Jeremy Hunt, who, of course, is the new Chancellor, he has come out and said, wait for this, that in order for the UK to reduce its dependence on Russia, households must reduce their energy use too. He's basically saying there's going to be a new government campaign telling Brits, stop having have showers instead of baths, cut down on the cooking, cut down on the heating. I mean, seriously, this is, World War II stuff being imposed on Brits in the name of this is how we defeat Russia in the Ukraine. What do people make of this?
Well, it's a very disingenuous way of even addressing the problem. The reality is the reason why we're in this situation and we're facing this energy crisis is threefold. One, it's because of COVID and the market's readjusting to increase demand for oil and gas. Two, it's partly because of the Russian war. But the biggest part of it is because of actual government incompetence, which goes back for decades. The fact that the government didn't plan for something like this. Every government has to have an excess supply of energy stored because they can't always rely on the market to meet those needs. Because when we have situations like this, when there's a huge imbalance between supply and demand, we need the government to be able to fill in that gap. Our storage capacity has been reduced over the last decade, which is completely it just boggles the mind. We have preposterous half-wits like the former deputy leader of the Lib Dems saying that actually banning fracking was such a great idea because now we are at the mercy of countries like Russia for cheap gas. And now we've seen what that situation has got us into. So it's very disingenuous to tell us that to defeat Russia we need to cut our energy supply. It's actually put the blame where it belongs, which is government incompetence, which goes back for decades really.
Hear, hear. Couldn't agree with you more. And now, what about this idea that Rishi Sunak is considering a closer arrangement with the EU? What a surprise. Sunak is, of course, a darling of the World Economic Forum, so no surprises there. But the newspapers have come up with a new term. There's nothing like the British press to come out with these kind of snappy phrases, but regret is the new thing for POMs who regret Brexit. So how are your regrets going, Esther? Any regrets, Esther?
I think most people are disappointed with Brexit because they expected this huge economic boom. But the reality is Brexit hasn't really materialized in the way anyone expected. We had two options. We could have gone for a clean break and gone for a completely deregulated market like the Singaporeans have, or we could have gone for sort of a Norwegian or even Swiss style of our relationship with the EU, where we're close, but we're in, but not really. But at the moment, we have this really disjointed kind of combination of the two. And I think the real problem is, for the Scots, even though Nicola Sturgeon's hope of calling a second Scottish independence referendum were tarnished by the Supreme Supreme Court yesterday. The reality is most Scots that are pushing for Scottish independence is because they want to rejoin the EU. So it's not just a matter of, regret and people regretting voting for Brexit. It's also the fact that the union could be destroyed and broken up, because if we don't get, a real Brexit deal sorted and we know where the direction of the country is going, you will have countries wanting to leave the union.
Absolutely. You need a proper Brexit. That's absolutely correct. Esther Krakue,
Exactly.
always great to chat to you. We'll see you again next week.